Hi YouTube! This is my first voiceover video. I'm kind of planning to do less of the time lapses here, but if I do them, you will hear my voiceovers a lot more frequently. I plan on keeping them themed for more of a podcast style. While I do really love doing digital work, it's not my main focus, and I actually didn't really want that to be the focus of my YouTube anyway. I wanted to move towards things that were more themed, like vlogs, and a little more creatively inclined things. I'm going to start out with just talking about the piece itself. You'll see that here I'm working on the thumbnail for it. I did a really brief sketch and then I minimized it on my screen. I personally like working in thumbnails pretty small. It really kind of helps to put things into perspective, frankly. You can kind of get a better line of sight by looking at things smaller, to me personally. So I went in and I started just blocking out some basic colors and basic shapes. I really played around with the kind of view that you're seeing things in. And originally I'd really wanted some really dynamic lighting, and when I got to that, it just kind of felt too much. But as you can see here, I'm kind of just blocking through some colors. You'll see me hit undo quite a bit. I tried here doing just some basic shadow, light, and kind of just regular color blocking techniques to see where I wanted things to sit, where I wanted the light to come from, where I wanted the lightest of my subjects to be. And then I kind of came through with an eraser and I tried to kind of block out where the light sources would come from. This is actually an idea that I nixed in terms of the piece itself, for the fact that it just wasn't a very steady light source. And now, as you can see, I moved on to the crystals. I was really having some trouble here. When I started in art in college, I actually wanted to be a concept artist in game development, but that kind of was overlooked by the fact that I really just liked illustration in general. And so I started out with pieces actually very similar to this. As you can see here, I started having to completely redraw the crystals. I had realized that in my original line art, they didn't really have any detail to them that I could fill in. Something for digital art, for crystals in particular, I will recommend now. Always do them on their own separate layer, as usual with everything. Well, for some cases. But for crystals or rocks, things that have a lot of sides and dimensions to them, if you do them on a separate layer, it's a lot easier because you can block them out and then color drop them, like I do. And I had a lot of fun playing with the color scheme for these crystals regardless. You can see here, I really played with pinks and purples, greens to kind of make them look a little more dynamic. You also see that I went through a lot of phases here with color blocks and, trying to get really cool backgrounds and things like that. None of those panned out. I literally went, I think, with my original idea for the piece because nothing really fit in the landscape proportions that I'd wanted, and that I enjoyed of the piece. Nothing that I did except for the first idea really looked proper. And then you can see I start kind of laying groundwork for shadows, and for where the platform is going to be. You see that I started blocking out shapes that were the kind of cave walls and rock formations in the back. This is something I frankly do with just a lasso tool and color dropping. It makes everything easier. You can always do them on all separate layers, or you can do it on one layer. I prefer a bunch of different layers. And you can see here I started trying to kind of define where I wanted lights and shadows to be in the crystals themselves. That's kind of honestly where the meat of this project was in the crystals, because they were kind of the main focal point outside of the sword in the center. They took the most time, but they were worth it. I played with a lot of texture and a lot of I think dynamic of lighting is really the best way to put it for the crystals. they ended up being my primary light source for the entirety of the piece. And so I really needed them to have that very lit from within look. And you can see here, this is where I started getting the idea that, okay, I need to go back in and I need to completely re-outline the crystals and start blocking them out. For crystals in particular, rocks that are like that, where they do have that kind of lit from within look, blocking them out, particularly like this, all the sides, it helps you to be able to color block in pretty much any of the light from within them that you see. And it's a really cool illusionary trick by, you know, showing shadowed faces and interchanging that with light faces and then medium tones. And it kind of does a lot of the work for you. You know, you can see here, I had to turn off the background for a while because I couldn't see portions of what I was doing. But this is also where I took the opportunity to really kind of refine the shapes that I had in the piece. This entire section, I think, was really where I spent the most of my time, was just reviewing the shapes of the crystals that I had, seeing what I liked about them, what I didn't, what I could keep, and what I didn't want to keep, kind of reviewing where my light source was coming from, what I could do to mess with the fact that I didn't end up using that idea of those two cracks in the top of the cave. You know, how could I come back from that nice and cohesively? And coming up here, you'll kind of see where I then started to block in all of those kind of clumps of crystals, where they began to kind of take the final form for the piece that they needed. So I put in, you know, shadowed blocks, and I put in medium tones, and I really tried to have fun with them. They were a challenge. I didn't expect them to be as much of a challenge as they were, frankly. Especially for the fact that, like, you go through this process and you have to blend everything out, and you have to make sure that they, you know, they all have really cohesive light, essentially, given they were the light source. Like, I had to make sure that they weren't overpowering or that things were proper, and I had to play with the kind of contrasting colors, which I actually didn't end up using. But I did end up having a lot of fun with blending them out and really getting that structured look that you see out of like crystal clumps, geodes, that sort of a thing. And after that, I really just continued working on the background and adding more light sources, more shadows, more depth to the backgrounds and to the sides of the cave. Yeah, honestly, the rest is pretty self-explanatory. You can see where I start to block out, like, oh, these are where the cracks and, you know, the crevices of the cave walls are going to be. And while they're not really apparent in the end of the piece, in terms of outstanding detail, it did the job. And that's really all you're kind of looking for when you have that landscaped kind of piece. You're looking for what will trick the eye into thinking there's more there than what there is. That's, I think, one of the biggest things I ever took from digital art classes or things like that. It is using light as an illusion to trick the eye into thinking there's more in the piece than there actually is. And it's always been something that's really helpful, and you really just kind of build out from dark to light, and it really kind of changes the way a piece looks and has, I don't know, I think it is really just the dynamic of it. It changes the dynamic into something a little more extraordinary. This piece was honestly not really inspired by much. I had a very dear friend of mine come up with the idea with me, and it's actually a trade piece, so we offered to do a trade where I made this into a poster for him, and his name is Rye from Shipwreck Forge. He's on Instagram. I'll plug him down below. he's really fantastic jewelry maker, so I did a trade with him for some jewelry for this piece as a poster. And we both loved it so much, I actually got permission from him to make this into a poster and print for my shop. Honestly, I think this was just inspired by a mutual love of anything dorky and fantasy themed. You know, I looked at a lot of pieces that kind of went for, I don't know, a video game feel, I guess is the best way to put it. I didn't actually do a lot of research for this piece in terms of what I usually would do to break down elements that I liked and that I wanted to keep. I kind of kept things pretty simple. I just kind of went with my gut. And I really am glad I did. It turned out phenomenally, in my opinion. I truly do love this piece. It was challenging to get the light source right here at the end. I wanted to give it some glow, and I could not find for the life of me. I actually had to put it down for a few hours because I just could not figure out for the life of me where to bring the extra pop of detailed light. I could not for the life of me figure out where to find that or where to put it, what to do with it. And yeah, this was honestly, I think, one of the first pieces that I've done in a really long time that gave me such joy to do. It really, I don't know, it was one of those pieces that, while I spent a lot of time doing all of the minute details, like you can see I'm doing here, if you really pay attention, I'm just adding, you know, detailed shadows and detailed highlights to things. I think this was so fun because of those details, and I'm really proud of the way that this turned out because of how long it had been since I'd done anything like this. But yeah, to move on from this piece, I did want to update you guys. So I am planning a spring drop. I'm pulling out all the stops. I kind of wanted to move on from the holiday themed stuff. So everything in my shop right now that is holiday themed, there's even a tab for it. It's on my Etsy page, Lullaby Emporium. Everything there is 70% off. I kind of want to clear out everything from holiday just to pull back into the springtime. This Friday, so when you guys see this video, the poster for this print is actually up on my Etsy as a pre-order, and you can also get it as a regular print if you'd like. I hope you're all having a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye!